So a quick devotional thought this morning. I was reading through 1 Timothy, and my passage I focused on this morning was the first chapter, verses 18 through 20. It says, This charge I entrust to you, Timothy, my child, in accordance with the prophecies previously made about you, that by them you may wage the good warfare, holding faith and a good conscience. By rejecting this, some have made shipwreck of their faith, among whom are Hymenaeus and Alexander, whom I have handed over to Satan, that they may learn not to blaspheme. So I was thinking through this passage, trying to sort through, okay, this is a good word, how does it apply to my life? And the charge that Paul gives Timothy of holding faith and a good conscience is a significant thing. When we are deceived, we are probably walking away from Christ. When we're deceived, we're probably disregarding truth. We're probably, when we're deceived, by definition, we're disregarding truth, right? Think about it this way. What would driving on the roads be like if nobody thought that the yellow lines and the white lines mattered at all? It'd be absolute chaos. And thank God we don't live in a world like that, where that's the case, though sometimes it is the case. But the yellow lines and white lines tell us something about where we need to be and where we need to be going. And there'd be wrecks everywhere if nobody was following this. So Paul uses Hymenaeus and Alexander as an example to point out to Timothy of what not to do. They have not held to good faith and a good conscience. And the example he's pointing back to earlier in the chapter is people who teach a different doctrine, devote themselves to myths and endless genealogies, and promote speculation rather than stewardship from God that is by faith. So I started thinking about that and say, okay, if this is the path that leads us astray, then what does that mean for us? That holding to a good conscience means the rejection of a good conscience is what causes the shipwrecking of faith. One definition for conscience or maintaining a good conscience is the state of one's moral self-evaluation accurately registers that one has been obedient to God. Now think about that. Like, if I'm deceived in the aspect of my conscience, then I can be thinking that I'm following truth, but in reality, be deceived, be following something other than the truth. So, how do we connect all these pieces together? There's a lot to take in here, but the point is, when I am following truth, I'm holding to good faith that keeps me on the path of following Christ. The thing for me personally that probably gets me into the most trouble, that I can find myself veering off of that path, is that idea of speculations. And we see it a lot, especially in the news today right now, like, whose truth is truth when it comes to COVID-19? Whose truth is truth when it comes to what's actually happening in politics? And it's easy. It is so easy to get wound up in that. And I think about how easy it is for me to get wrapped up in conversations about politics, and yet it's so easy to ignore conversations about the truth of who Christ is. What if for every one conversation we had about politics, especially in an election year, we had two conversations about who Christ is and what he's done in our lives? Another kind of speculation that I've been struggling with a lot lately is just what's going to be happening in my future. What's it going to look like? How's it going to work itself out? All these what ifs. the potential eventualities of jobs and where God's taking us in this whole mystery. And I feel like I'm being a good steward. Like, I'm trying to take care of my family. I'm trying to accomplish all these good things, noble things. But in reality, I'm sacrificing an opportunity to focus on who Christ is for the sake of wondering what might happen down 100 different avenues. God's promised to take care of us. God's promised to make sure that we're fed and make sure we have a roof over our heads. He tells us to compare our own selves to birds and flowers that he takes care of. He takes care of them perfectly. He says that the flowers aren't toiling, trying to figure out what they're going to wear. The birds aren't storing up in barns food for themselves. God provides for them what they need when they need it. I'm missing out on the ministry of the now, the what's happening today at this moment. And so this is where it's easy for my eyes to get diverted. And I think, I'm thinking that I'm actually doing something good by worrying about these things, by trying to solve all these problems that don't even exist yet. And the reality is, I'm deceiving myself and am risking making shipwreck of my faith, as it says in 1 Timothy 1. Proverbs 4:25-27 is our fighter verse for this week. My family is going through in our devotions. It says, "Let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. Ponder the path of your feet. Then all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or the left. Turn your feet away from evil." Fixing our eyes on the author and perfecter of our faith. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And instead, I'm fixing my eyes on problems that I think I need to solve for myself. And in doing so, I'm telling God I don't trust him. That's something I got to repent of. I can't live that way. What is my life saying if the testimony of my life is he spent all his time trying to figure out problems? Well, that might sound like it's a good thing, but it's not a trusting thing. I want the testimony of my life to be he trusted God to solve his problems. I don't want to be like Alexander and Hymenaeus. I don't want to be so wound up in speculation about the latest conspiracy theory or what else, politics and all the garbage that's going on there. I need to have one singular focus of my life, and that being Christ. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, politics are important. We have an election coming up. We need to be diligent in consideration of the most important things, and we need to vote. But it's not the most important thing. There's going to be another election in 2 years. There's going to be another election in 4 years. There's elections every year. God is working out his plan, and people are dying. People are making shipwreck of their faith because Christians aren't taking the time to have the important conversations. It's not about Republican or Democrat. It's not about socialism or communism or Republican or Democrat or any of these other things. It's about who is Christ. What are you going to do with him? I need to focus. I need to focus on this one path, on the one truth, not to be deceived by everything else that's going on, but to hang on to this truth. Join me. There's hard work to do in our hearts. but it's good work. And God has promised to see us through.